I grind for the love of the game. Takes remain scorching hot, although the days may not. I grind for the love of the game. Approaching the season's quarter mark. Let's give it some thought.
I'm down to think. I can't wait to hear the R-rated version of these intros, like the Flyin After Dark podcast, where we're not worried about any Yahoo like explicit labels on the podcast, just letting it rip. I think the people might want to hear that.
Some darker flows.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I think one of these times I just need to like come in and not have any idea what I'm saying and just like spew. It needs to be a day where like, something went terribly wrong in fantasy and I'm very angry.
Yeah, that could be my last 2 weeks, but go on.
Yeah, I guess just in case the people were wondering, because when we last recorded, Litke and I had a matchup of undefeated teams. It was a hell of a matchup, back and forth. Some people might cite some late scratches as a reason for ultimately falling to me, as I remain undefeated. Me and James Robinson. Shout out James Robinson. I apologize. So I roll on, hoping to get to 6-0. But some of these late scratches to make this, content worthy. I think you had one with PJ Washington, and then you had one with Jordan Poole, where like the player's luck. The game starts at 4, but then something, I think Poole churned an ankle in warmups, but that was after 4. The NBA has to fix this. We should not have players locking when they're doing layups.
Yeah, it was tough, and I feel like I don't usually get too upset about those. I feel like they typically even out. It was frustrating when it came down to it, looking at the end of the results at the end of the day, Sunday, and being like, oh, I lost by 3 assists and 20 points. I was like, well, there it is. Like, so, but hopefully that all evens out in the grand scheme of things. But in the moment, and I'm sure at some point we probably we can get to our grumpy old man, do our kind of our gripes take. I feel like that podcast is probably coming, but now's not the time for that. So now we got some good reflection in front of us.
Gripes takes. A quick format question for you, and I'm really curious what you think. And my answer has evolved a bit. So the other 2 category-based leagues I'm in, they're Yahoo leagues, and we've talked about this before. It's head-to-head format, but the overall record is the categories won. So I'm in first place in one league. I think I was 22-12, categories won and lost. I went through, I would have won all those matchups. There's another league. I think it's benefited me to have the categories being the overall record. But there's something about our league when just you can swallow that bitter pill at the end when someone picks up a streamer and you lose because of the strategy. There's definitely more strategy, and I feel like the better you know the people in the league, the more I lean towards having it just be a 5-4, and that's your then so. But there's something nice about it. It's almost like it blends what people like about rotisserie leagues with head to head. Like, where are you at with that? Have you done one that has that win-loss record be the categories won and lost?
I'm not sure I have, actually, now that you say that. I kind of like the fact of the category is that you can just go hard into punts. Right. And I love just to see like how that radically different that you can have 2 roster constructions. We have there's one team in our league that I think has 6 centers. The roster construction is wild. It hardly makes any sense. And the valuation for players that would make his team are so insanely different than the valuations that would make another team in the league that's going guard heavy. And I think that's fun. I kind of like that. Just like, it's just two radically different things, and a little bit rotisserie. I feel like, while it is fun, and I've done rotisserie before, you kind of can, it's fun if you're competing, and it gets pretty old if about halfway through the season you realize that you're in a pretty deep hole, and there's not a lot of opportunities to climb your way out of it.
Yeah, well thought. I like the head-to-head win-loss format because it does force you to commit to a build, and that also incentivizes trading that makes sense to try to commit to the build, to try to strengthen it. So I like that about it. So you're not just doing a rankings evaluation, just trying to, sell somebody at the perfect time just because you think it's a sell high. You need to consider your build. I like that about it.
Yeah. Well, jumping into this, I'm kind of I'm wondering if we took this the same direction. I mean, we kind of, the open prompt was kind of a pre-quarter season review. I really wanted to look at it through the lens of players I was surprised by, both for good and for bad. So the guys on my list, they're far from victory laps, because if I had a guy high and he's crushing it, he's not included on this list because I thought that he would do well, or if I thought he was going to do, if he's going to be a bust and he was, then he's not, then there's no surprise there. So but almost by definition, the guys that I'm going to be talking about are guys that are almost misses on my rankings because I was so surprised about it. So it'll be, I'm kind of curious as we go through if it'll be kind of fun to reflect back on those and see if you had the same takes on them going into the season or not.
Interesting. Yeah. So for me, this is just for the people to put a stamp on it. This is our quarterly review in fantasy basketball. The basic premise is I kind of went through ADPs thus far, and I wanted to point out players who had vastly out or underperformed those ADPs, and give a little bit of actionable advice as far as like, is this sustainable? Are there reasons for that production being somebody's been out of the lineup, like what a usage jump? So I did focus more on players who stand out when you come through where they were drafted and where they're ranked, for the purpose of just kind of giving some actionable advice on those players.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I think to start this podcast, to start this theme,
let's start.
There's only one player that we can start with. I think we can both agree on this one. You might have him on your list, but maybe you don't. So we discussed in that ADP examination podcast that we did, that if you wanted to take this player second after the Joker, we would not blame you. Turns out that was the right spot for Tyrese Halliburton. I think even us being Hallie optimists, even the greatest Hallie optimists, you got to be pleasantly surprised with what he's done. I mean, it's been a crazy jump. I think the comp I gave Halliburton was peak Steve Nash in a modern NBA offense. And I think that's kind of the player we have. So his per game rank, which is by the averages, is third. His totals is fifth, and that's the season rank you see in the upper left of your Yahoo player screen. He's been fluctuating between second and fifth all year. His final ADP was 7. So, the average draft room didn't find him to be the player to take number 2. I think if you
7, really, that was the real. Wow, I'm surprised about that, actually.
I was too. Yeah, his final ADP ended up being 7. And I think if we did a redraft, it might not be consensus, but he would be not my number 2, and I think he'd be the most common number 2 off the board, don't you?
Yeah, either him or SGA.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the Pacers were really fun, not just because their games are complete like 1980s like Nuggets, shootouts.
First to 140.
Yeah, exactly. And I think they are going to be in that play-in tournament. They won their bracket, I believe. But I like these teams, and I've alluded to this in the past. Teams that are going to stay in the fight till the bitter end, meaning they're right on the bubble of getting like the 5th or 6th seed, or they're going to be fighting for play-in positioning. And so I think the Pacers are one of those teams. The default Yahoo playoff schedule has them as a 3-3-4. So championship week, when you're getting a 4 out of Hallie, the Nuggets have a 2-game week, which is interesting. So, would you want, obviously Hallie could maybe sit one of those games depending, we don't know. But,
right.
All things equal, would you want 4 games of Hallie or 2 games of Joker? I just thought that was a nice little nugget.
Yeah. Nice pun in there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been crushing it. I mean, he's leading the league in assists. Kind of he's just taken every single step, every single thing that we've seen him do well last year and the year before. He's just kind of elevated on that. Pace of play is, I think, like as you alluded to, is a huge thing. They're getting shots up in 10 seconds. And so he's getting so many opportunities to just accumulate stats out there and there doesn't seem to be any slowing down for that, because on top of that, I mean, the way they're doing it is working. I mean, they're winning games. They're right where they wanted to be, kind of right in that fringy bubble. And yeah, he's doing that all with this. I think almost the most surprising part is he's doing it with efficiency too. So
Yep.
it
point.
seems super sustainable. Young guy taking the next step. This is here to stay. This feels really real.
And the joy he plays with is palpable for that team. You love players like
For
that.
sure. You do.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like a young young Flying J out there, but
that's quite the honor. So I went with a layup. I just think we had to touch on Hallie to start. Nate, I assume, is going to dive a little bit deeper. So who have you unearthed for your first player for this prompt?
Well, I'm not necessarily diving deeper right off the bat. I'm going to the guy that I was surprised who has been doing as poorly as he has, to be honest with you. And that's Cade Cunningham. His Yahoo pre-draft was 43. I had him. I was really bullish on him. I had him as 19. And he's currently at 128. So there's been some ink spilled on him over the last week on different sites, kind of diving into some of the more advanced metrics of what's going on. Because on first blush, his box score numbers, 22, 4, and 7 are really strong. But what's just absolutely crushing him is he's shooting 41% from the field. He doesn't have a single game, not a single game this season where he shot over 50%.
Good work, mate. Good work to come through those box scores.
Yeah, and he's a league worst 4.5 turnovers a game. So he's just crushing you on those things. Were you? Remind me. I know we talked about it a little bit. Were you bullish on him, or are you kind of closer to where his ADP was?
I remember when you said you had him 19th. I kind of sat back in my chair and went like, "Dang, like I'm not that high on him." So no, I mean I was definitely somewhere in the like where Pascal Siakam was going. I definitely would have taken Cunningham over him. I liked him if you could get him in the late third, early fourth. There's something about the Pistons that just stinks. Just there's a real stench on that organization, and the price you had to pay for him. And he's been not injury prone, but he's been in and out of the lineup throughout his career. And I didn't want to build a team around him as a top 3 guy this season. He's more of a DFS target for me in great matchups with high pace. But yeah, early season long, he was. I guess he was a bit of a fade for me, just where he was going. Not terrible fade.
That's fair. I happen to be working with a Pistons fan right now, which is kind of fun. I don't get an opportunity to like do deep dive Pistons talk that often, and so I've kind of vetted this one out a decent amount, and it's given me some reason to watch more Pistons games than I ever might have. And watching him, and I'm curious to see if this makes any sense. This is just something I was like floating around in my head as I was watching him this last game. Was he kind of reminds me a little bit, and sorry for the cross sport analogy, he kind of reminds me a little bit of a late career Le'Veon Bell, in that he has the size. He's got the size and the ball handling to get anywhere he wants to on the court, and he gets to the paint, and he gets there with this real slow motion, really deliberate movement, just like Le'Veon Bell would kind of like just lightly jog to the line, and then then he'd have the burst to take off. Where Cade kind of has this, he gets into the lane, he gets right to the spot where he wants to, but then he seems to not know what to do or not have the burst to kind of exploit that spot in the paint, and it kind of leads to him just getting blocked a lot by centers or just kind of coughing up the ball. So I don't know if that analogy makes any sense.
Well, I'm glad. Yeah, I think like when Le'Veon Bell went to the Jets and he just didn't have the burst, I was afraid it was going to be a tennis comp or something. I was like, I have no idea what you're about to.
Pickleball.
When you were describing Cade Cunningham getting himself into those situations, it reminded me of that clip of your boy Jordan Poole that went viral when he crossed a dude up and he like just ended up too open, and he would have had to take like an 8-foot floater. Instead, he leans in and just gets his shot annihilated by the big guy that was in front of him. I feel like it was Duran, Detroit. But dude, yeah, there's something about Cade's game where there's a hesitation. I don't know if it's coaching. I don't know if it's like his injuries that he's experienced and his body. He doesn't trust his body.
Burst, I don't know.
Like a burst, but Cade's been frustrating, but he's still one of those players that I pulled up multiple times in leagues and thought about offering a buy low.
Yeah, I still at this point, if you can find somebody that actually, an owner that actually thinks that he's a 120s guy, and you can get him for a top, for anywhere in that value, like you hop on it. I think he's young enough. I think they're the opportunities there. I think there's still a buy low opportunity, but it just depends on what the person that's rostering him thinks.
And at this stage in his career, the Pistons are not going to need to bench Kate Cunningham to lose games.
So, no, they do not. No, they do not.
That's a good one. All right, well, let's jump into my next guy. And just what a time to be a Tyrese. Got to stick with the Tyrese theme here. We got to do Tyrese Maxey. This is a player that I found over the years has had his doubters. Just doing dialogue the past couple of years. I took him in a keeper league last year and got a chorus of boos. That guy sucks. So I have a little bit of a personal. He's one of my guys. But what I've seen is a budding young star that was waiting to get out from behind a scraggly old beard. And now that he's done that, Tyrese Maxey is just taking his opportunities. And man, he's infectious. Tyrese has loved to have a good time with the basketball. And you can see it. So his per game rank, his averages eighth overall. His totals 6 overall. His final ADP was 54th, and the most important stat of all, of course, Flyin J's personal exposure, 50%.
Wow, yeah. We love talking about your exposure rates.
Isn't that nice? I think the number one factor here is 38 minutes a game. I mean, the kid is just so full of energy, so full of juice. That's hard to find. I don't have minutes per game. He has the Nick Nurse bump, which we love.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, you're getting 26.5 points a game. You're getting 7 dimes. You're getting 5 rebounds. You're getting 0.8 steals and 0.7 blocks. And if you care about this, and Nate, I know you do, 1.4 turnovers.
That's a shocking. That's a really shocking number there. It almost doesn't compute.
It's nuts, dude. Yeah, that one jumped off the page to me today. There's nothing here to not love. He shoots 90% from the free throw line on 5.5 attempts a game. And I see no reason to believe this isn't the player that Tyrese Maxey is. I get that he was picked in the mid 20s. I think maybe number 22 overall. I watched him a lot in college at Kentucky, followed him closely. I compared him to Nick Van Exel. I thought he was an erratic shot maker. I never saw a player who could lead a team as far as the key distributor. I didn't see this coming until he got into the NBA, and then he really blossomed. But I'm curious, what's been your impression on Tyrese Maxey before he was in this role? Like, how surprised are you? I know he was a hot commodity, but he was still a great value, obviously, 54th ADP. So yeah, what are your thoughts on Maxey coming in and now?
Yeah, it's a little bit of I'm conflicted, and I feel like there's going to be a little bit of crow. I'm going to be eating this whole podcast, just the way I designed my my sheet. But but I'll be fair, I was a Maxey doubter. I apologize to the 76er fans in my life. I underestimated his potential. To an extent. I mean, to be fair, you said his final ADP was 54. On my personal rankings, I still had him at 33. So I think I was more bullish on him than the wider fantasy community. But I was quite a bit. But I did not ever expect this leap. I did not expect it at all. So I'm quite surprised by it. He's, like you said, he's fun as hell to watch, and it's great to see, especially to see as a James Harden, not quite a James Harden fan. It's fun to see that also, kind of him blossoming, getting out of that shadow.
It's really cool. It stopped a lot of things. It's halted the Joel Embiid to the Knicks trade talk. It's saved some jobs over there in Philly. I think a lot of people thought it was crazy that the Sixers did not want to include Maxey in a Damian Lillard trade. And in a couple years, Sixers fans are I think they're happy now. But think about it. I mean, the kid's 22 years old. I mean, that was obviously very smart. Yeah,
it's looking quite smart. I'm gonna stick in Philadelphia while you were here, and
Paul Reed, baby.
And I'm not going to be Paul Reed, despite the back row Sixer fans here. I gotta give some flowers to Tobias Harris.
Right on.
Who I feel like he's a bit of a punching bag of sorts in the fantasy community, or he's often, him and a Harrison Barnes are kind of a stand-in for average fantasy player. He's kind of just your nondescript background guy, but he is having a great season. He really is. His Yahoo rankings was 101. I had him at 78. He's currently the 32nd ranked player. He's just having a great season, and he's doing it with a trickle of stats and across the board and really high efficiency. 19, 6, and 3. I guess really, I was kind of curious, because he's been pretty poor the last couple of years, and so I was kind of curious: is this like getting out from James Harden situation, or is this just kind of early season? It's a handful of games can kind of skew your numbers. And so I guess I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it. But looking at it real quick before that was just, on one hand, because I went back and forth on this. So I really am interested to hear your take on this. But on one hand, he has the third lowest usage rate of his 12-year career at the moment. So it's not like he's shouldering a bigger load now that Harden's not there. But on the other side of it, he's shooting 32% from 3. He's a 37% shooter. So there's some positive regression that can happen on 3s. The flip side is there's no way he shoots better than he currently is, because he's shooting 91% from the line, 53% from the field. Those are significantly above his career average. What do you think? I mean, at 32, would you trade? What are the odds he's 6 in the top 50 this season?
I'll start moving backwards. So yeah, like you said, he's kind of regressed a little bit, but he's regressed too much. The last week he's 238. And over the past 2 weeks he's 93rd. I took him at number 86 in a 9-cat league, and I loved it. It's one of those picks where people kind of breeze past him because he's kind of boring. But that boring pick used to come in the 50s. Now that boring pick was coming in the 80s. So you can kind of bake that in. I really appreciate the nugget about the usage rates. But yeah, I mean, I love Tobias Harris as kind of he's like an upscale glue guy for your fantasy team. He just does a lot of things really well. And I would say he's a buy low right now, because I'm a Tobias Harris fan, but if I got, the right offer, I consider moving him out, thinking anyone's married to him. I think he's a good buy low right now. And there's no reason, if you look at that roster, although his usage is a little bit down, I mean, Nick Batum isn't going to be the reason for that. I mean, he's clearly the third option on the team. And his minutes are locked in. So I love Tobias Harris as a safety net for a 9-cat roster. And I love the shout out to the old vet.
Yeah, he fits every build too. So you're right. He's a good trade guy across the board too.
Yeah, exactly. He's shooting 36% from the field the past week, but 52 on the season. And he shot 50 last season. So yeah, good buy low right now. Good shout out, brother. Okay, well, the next player is someone I'm looking forward to talking to you, Natron Clean, about. Because we were both really high on this guy coming in. He slowed down a little bit from the first round start to the season. And to be fair, I think there was like a crystal shining, glimmering sell high window there for a bit. If you got a crazy enough offer, if you could have flipped him at one point for a player who might have a longer sustained first round stretch. But still, the high end of the optimism we had on this guy has certainly been reached, and that is Scotty Barnes.
Scotland Barnes.
Gotta talk Scotland Barnes. All right, so we'll go over the numbers a little bit, just to give you an idea, a snapshot of where he started, where he's at now. So his per game rank, his averages, he's still 16th. He is 38th the past 2 weeks. His totals, so his season rank, he's number 9. So when I tell you he slipped to 38th, I'll remind you that his final ADP was 50. So that's the thing. I mean, he is still outperforming, even though he slipped a little bit. And I saw a tweet today, somebody like, take us back to the days when Scotty Barnes was good, and then he put up a really nice line at the end. And yeah, I think people are ready to assume he'll slip back to where he was last year, because he was pretty bad last year for long stretches.
Mhm.
So one thing I looked into was his usage rates. His usage rate has been on a little bit of a decline since the season started. One of the big problems is it seems like him and Pascal Siakam kind of take turns. It's hard to anticipate when that'll be.
Yeah.
They really have big usage nights at the same time. His usage rate is 23.3, which is below Pascal Siakam's of 25.
Yeah, it's not bad, really. It's kind of low.
It's kind of low. So 23.3 is right in the range of Tim Hardaway Jr., favorite of the pod, and Karis LeVert. So you'd like to see that higher. I mean, these are guys who are ball dominant when they're on the court. So it's kind of an interesting stat. I mean, Karis LeVert's out there running second units or filling in Donovan Mitchell misses. Still, I think it's safe to say he was a bargain where you're able to get him. Quick look at his numbers here. Last season, he averaged 15 points. He's giving you 19 this year. Last year, he averaged 6.6 rebounds. This year, 9.2. His dimes are up from 4.8 to 5.6. And the stocks have really been what have come back around. You and I have talked about that. Getting 1.2 blocks and 1.7 steals. And sometimes those come in droves. And there's 3-point. You're getting 2 threes a game out of him. He's shooting 38% from 3.
I know. That's an equally big surprise there.
Exactly. So his shooting's better. His free throws are right where they don't kill you. It's 75%. So I guess actionable here. I think there was a sell high window, like I said, when he was just killing it. And people had I didn't draft Scotty Barnes regret. Quick Flyin J exposure check, 25%. So I'm enjoying that. But yeah, where do you think this heads for Scotty Barnes? Obviously, the Toronto Raptors seem out of sorts. They're not that fun of a watch. They have too many wings. So yeah, what's your rest of season outlook for Scotty?
Yeah, that's a great question because I think a lot of it is we don't know what the Raptors are going to do. I think everybody thought last season at some point they're going to trade on Fleek, and they just didn't. And then the year before, everybody thought they would trade Kyle Lowry at some point, and they just let him walk. I thought that for sure they were either going to pick a course about this offseason building around Pascal Siakam or building around Scotty Barnes, and they chose to do neither. And it's kind of really confusing. Everybody thinks that there's going to be a deadline trade that happens that kind of gives this roster a little bit more long-term direction, but who knows at this point? And so I think it's kind of almost foolish to make a prediction over what's going to happen almost, that there's going to be a radical change. I mean, as you mentioned, we were both bullish on him. You know, I had him ranked at 25 on my rankings. Clearly I didn't, but I clearly didn't see this outbreak happening, which is pretty cool. One thing I was curious, I mean, and we talked about this a bit when we were kind of going back and forth on a few different Raptors, was kind of like what we thought the outcome was, because it seemed pretty up in the air. And so I wanted to just look to see what the Nick Nurse effect was on a few of these big players. And really because, you know, everybody talks about the Nick Nurse minutes bump. You were talking about it with Maxey just a few minutes ago, playing 38 minutes. But so Scotty Barnes last year played 35 minutes. This year he's playing 34 and a half. So he's not seeing any difference in minutes, but he seems to be the one player on that roster that's immune to that minutes reduction, because Pascal's going from 37 to 34. OG's going from 36 to 32. Gary Trent is the big loser in this, obviously, going from 32 to 26. But it is interesting that they've kind of kept Scotty Barnes at this level, and it's fun to see. You know, you were talking about Halliburton being a joyous guy to watch play. Scotty Barnes is the same way. On the open court, he's a terror.
Amen. Yeah, no, I love watching him play. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Is Asai Ujiri good, or did he kind of luck into a Kawhi Leonard trade and just sat on his thumbs ever since?
It's interesting because there's been a few of these Nuggets guys that have been crushing it as Nuggets, and then they leave the Nuggets and they're more jumbled after that. They kind of have a little bit more of the cachet to stick around. I don't know. Oh, I mean, he picked Scotty Barnes over what everybody said Terrell was going to be Suggs. So
Yeah.
you got to give him credit there. I'm going to still say he's good, but he's almost seems like he's got almost too much power at
He
this
would
point.
he'd be really bad on the stock market. I feel like he's the guy that like, and I don't want to use terms I don't understand, but he would
Oh yeah, I thought you, wait a second.
Fine,
This
Chase,
is the guy. This is the guy that has his own stock podcast, right? So like or money market podcast.
I think you're referring to Flying J's business pod. Now listen,
Oh, business pod. I'm sorry.
right. So you remember the Top Shot market that was just booming for a minute, the NBA Top Shot market?
Yeah, that was dumb.
Yeah, it was dumb. And like there was a point where you could sell these things for serious coin. And I feel like Asai Ujiri is the guy that's still sitting there like every night in the dark, like looking at his Top Shot collection that he never sold.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what it is with this guy, but he's not willing to, like, he's the opposite of Danny Ainge. Like, he's not willing to assess when the situation calls for getting out. I mean, because this team is poorly constructed. I mean, people have offered treasure chests for OG Anunoby. You know what's going to happen? He's going to pass his peak. He's going to show he shouldn't be the second best player on a team with aspirations, and his value is going to expire. That's what Asai Ujiri does. It's unfortunate.
Yes.
Good guy.
Yeah, he definitely. I mean, if you listen to you hear the rumors over like what Memphis and Portland offered for OG over the last year and a half, it's kind of criminal to not take that because he really is. He's a fourth best guy on the team, but we're not talking about OG. But
who are we talking about?
Well, we're talking about stock watches in general and guys that are in and things that are outperforming their ADPs. And one thing that I've noticed is just crushing its ADP is Steelbridge Coffee. And Steelbridge Coffee, I mean, you're talking about it's a one-man band, or he's got a couple employees at this point, but it's fair trade coffee, all organic beans, locally roasted. And if you go to steelbridgecoffee.com/PTJ, you can kind of go on there, peruse the cards that he's got, and you get 4 pounds of really sustainably sourced coffee delivered to your door, no shipping costs or anything like that. And it's a really fair price, and it's really, really high quality beans. I mean, that's just absolutely crushing its ADP, in my opinion. I just picked up a Dennis Rodman card yesterday, actually, from them.
Bulls, Spurs, Pistons.
I haven't got it in the mail yet. So I just saw Dennis Rodman. It's his I think it's Pistons. I'm pretty sure it's Pistons. So it's a young one.
We love Pistons, Dennis Rodman. It's before I met Carmen Electra and friends.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's so crazy here. But moving on though, one guy that is having a really good season, and I honestly did not see it coming.
Don't take my guy. Don't take my guy.
We'll see. I honestly I thought this guy was on the downhill. I'm almost calling this the Brook Lopez light resurgence.
Shout out.
Yeah, I just thought that last season was his last season being on a roster year round, and I was wrong. And that's Jonas Valanciunas.
Right. Damn. Good shout out.
I just he was ranked 105. And he's currently 33.
Like, I love Valen Daddy, but I happily dropped him when I picked up Zara Thompson draft night. I was like, all right, sorry, Valen Daddy, we're done here.
Yeah, I just assumed you're okay. Like I can find another guy to get me the 9 and 8 that you're gonna be dropping
without that game to game upside. But he's shown that again this year.
It really is, and it's such a surprise because it kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, last year was ranked 109th. I love it. And so I was like, why? I mean, he's on the same team, same players on that roster.
Zion's
coach.
Been healthy.
I guess Zion's been healthy. I went through and it's like his minutes are the same, his points are the same, his rebounds, threes, field goal percentage. They're all the same. Really the only thing what it is he halved his turnovers down to 1 a game, which is 0 basically. It's just almost none. And he doubled his blocks up to 1.4. So that's really what you're getting. You're getting 1.5 blocks with really high end rebounding and good field goal percentage. So kudos to him. I really thought he was kind of a streamer. So but he's tuning into a really good fantasy season.
God, I love the shout out. You know, I love me some Daddy. One problem with a player like Valanciunas coming into the year and not anticipating, and I'm curious if the 1.4 blocks will sustain. That to me, that screams maybe he's a sell high. Is you can only roster so many center only players. Like so, by the time you've drafted your 3 to 4, or maybe you got one off the waiver wire, a hot commodity early, if you're a Derek Lively guy, someone like that. It's really hard to roster somebody who seems like they're going to be a marginal player on your team who's center only. And so that's a trap I fell into with Valanciunas. But I love the shout out. I didn't consider him for the list, but man, it's nice to see.
Especially early season, it's fair because you kind of assumed he was a low ceiling guy. You assumed he's a high floor, low ceiling guy, and somehow he isn't.
Who has a better beard? I don't think anybody has. It looks great in person. It's so thick. Fantastic.
Yeah, beard. It's a real helmet face.
All right, we'll keep it moving because I'm pumped up. That Valanciunas shout out really got me going. This is somebody I didn't expect to talk about, and this is a little mini category. I'm going to call this the waiver bicycle glue guy who takes a leap to year-long hold.
I'm gonna wait. I mean, can you run that back just one more time? If I was listening to the podcast on my phone, I would just hit the back 15 seconds, but I don't have the ability to do on this.
Yes. In the past, the players I'm about to mention have been like the waiver wire bicycle, you know, the town bicycle. Everybody takes a ride, you put it back. But these players have taken a leap to a year-long hold. So
okay, I like this.
It's incredibly convoluted, but you know what's not convoluted?
No, I get it now.
As this player, he went undrafted in most leagues. He was 13% drafted on Yahoo. I'm going to read you the numbers and you tell me the player. And if you can't get it, that's all love. So his per game rank, so his averages, he's 54th. His totals, so his season rank, he's 32nd. His final ADP was 138. This is his age 27 season, and it's his first season with his new team. He had spent the previous
Max Strus.
Yes, maximum Max Strus, baby. What the hell has gotten into maximum Strus?
Man, I love Max Strus. I love Max Strus. He was my favorite guy. I've texted you a lot about him. I think I bet on him almost every single game in the playoffs last year because Vegas just was like, yeah, this guy isn't that good. Like, and you could just hit his overs every single game.
Totally.
I'm so excited that he's doing so well in Cleveland. I think that's awesome.
He's the perfect fit for that team, but this is what confuses me, Nate. So usually when a lifelong role player gets a big contract, which the 4 years, 63 million felt big at the time for Max Strus. Yeah. They don't go up a level, not like this. Usually we think about these players as system players. Think back to some of the guys who have played for the Spurs or the Heat, guys that end up getting that first big contract somewhere else and they kind of flatten out. Like Josh Richardson comes to mind. These guys who feel like more products of their system. And it turns out that Max Strus was not a byproduct of the Heat system at all. And you know, it's a Heat team that pumps out glue guys by the dozens every year.
Right.
Man, he's playing 35 minutes a game. Like I said, It's just a perfect role in Cleveland. I mean, this is exactly who they needed. And so I looked into it deeper and I'm wondering, has there been, or the numbers skewed, and we can talk the numbers, you can pull them up on your phone. If you're listening to this podcast, you probably have your fantasy app out. But you know, the 5 games without Donovan Mitchell, his stats ticked up slightly across the board, but only marginally. It just corresponded with the 2 extra minutes that he was getting in those games. Okay, so I'm going to do this for our own benefit so I can pick this desk up with no hands. So Max Strus in 35 minutes a game for Cleveland, all starts. In the past, he was a spot starter. You're getting 14 points a game compared to 11.5 last year. You're getting 5.7 rebounds compared to 3.2. 4 dimes out of Strus. That's double his previous career high. And his career average, including this season, is still only 1.7. And then for some reason, after a career high of 0.2 blocks, he's blocking 0.7 shots and giving you a steal a game. And if you care about turnovers, the 1.6 turnovers shouldn't bother you. Three pointers a game. What a cat. He's really jumped up to a glue guy that you just feel real smart for ending up with. He's not someone you can really trade for because you're not going to trade a top. Are you going to trade Drew Holiday for Max Strus? Maybe. I don't know. Max Strus has been more productive, but it's going to take really swallowing it to put out an offer that's going to net you Max Strus. But yeah, anything else on what sing his praises?
No, it's so true. He was a guy that I had higher on my rankings than everybody else, and I was like, okay, we'll see. This could be my last pick, and it didn't work out. And I was like, that's fine.
Right.
He's going to be on my roster at some point early
Right.
season because I
Yeah.
have more faith in him, I think, than everybody else. And then he just
In the
jumped out of the
world.
gate, and he never had a chance to come back. Somebody picked him up like week 1 or week 2, and I just have missed out, and it makes me a little sad.
I believe that we'll be seeing an appearance from Mr. Max Struess on the All Glue Guys first team pod that will be coming.
I think that's really fair.
I can't imagine that he would miss out on that. Just an elite role player.
Yeah.
All right, back to
I
you.
love his inclusion. Yeah. So on this podcast, we take swings.
Oh, yeah.
You're not coming here to get really like, your bus. We're not going to list a bunch of 38-year-old guys that are now the 8th best guy in their team. We take swings, and when we take swings, sometimes we miss. I'm guilty of it. But when we do miss, we own up here.
Let's get honest.
That's what's happening right now. I am owning up on my huge whiff on one Jordan
Poole.
Yep.
Say it together. I'm not here to slander you. I'm here to support you.
Yeah. I mean, his Yahoo rank was 52. As longtime listeners to this podcast know, I was bullish as can be. I had him at 31. I loved the move to Washington. He's currently a 155. Ugh, giant bust.
Okay, we'll try to have a free flowing conversation here. I got it. Yeah, I just remembered and I don't want to forget, and I do have ADHD. When we talked about Jordan Poole on the Panic or Party pod, I compared him to projecting a running back to go in and get a bunch of usage on his new team when you just don't know how the offense is going to develop. And it was fair to project a high usage, everything runs through Poole monster season. And I was scared to project that. I just did because I don't believe in the player per se. But I just want to say
neither one of us do. Yeah, we both think Jordan Poole in real life is terrible.
He's basically, and this is too current of a fantasy football comp for you, but he is fantasy football's Miles Sanders. He went from the Eagles in an incredible system, and he was an RB2 for years, to being unplayable for the Carolina Panthers. Horrible team who's won a single game. It's a dead comp.
I know who the Eagles are.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, good rock band, man. Good dad rock.
I don't know about that, but I mean, across the board, I mean, what's also surprising is, I guess I just assumed his floor was last year. On his new team.
Fair.
And he's every single stat, points, assists, field goal percentage, free throws attempts, threes. They're all worse. They're all worse than last year. And when you watch him play, and I think, well, I guess to step back though, I mean, I think when I talked about him before, I guess I assumed that he was going to have a reduction in efficiency, moving from the number 3 guy on a really good offense to the number 1 guy on a bad team. But I guess I thought that his 29 minutes a night that he averaged last year in Golden State was going to bump up to like 35 or so. That would counterbalance all of that. And getting all those extra minutes would just kind of rake it in. When in reality, he's averaging less minutes this year than he did the last 2 years. So he's not getting minutes. He's not playing well. When you watch him play, there's just no swagger about him. He seems like a guy it's just totally in over his head and just kind of lost his confidence. I'm not ruling out that he can find some mojo. Like, he can have one. I feel like he's one of those guys that just is a full moxie guy. And so, like, I think if he has 1 or 2 of these games,
it's like Austin Powers. He's all mojo or no mojo.
Or Nick Young or somebody maybe, but it's if he can, I feel like if he can string 1 or 2 of these games together where he just hits, like, goes kind of hot, he can have a couple week run where he gets back up into a top 50 guy. And that's what I would sell high, is when he's going to have a stretch. He's going to have a stretch where he's going to be a top 50, maybe even a top 30 guy for a couple weeks, and that is when you sell high. Don't sell high now. Don't sell low now.
Well, you're not going to drop him as you paid too much for him, and he still has the occasional blow up in the scoring column, and you're not going to get anything for him. So all you can do is hope for what you said. Now, top 30, I would highly doubt that, but
for a week or two, maybe.
But I wasn't going to talk about this player, but somebody who I was more bullish on during our Panicker Party pod this summer was Kyle Kuzma, and that's where the dimes have went. This guy's just out of control. He's averaged 7.3 assists the past 2 weeks to go with his 22.5 points, 6.5 rebounds, 2.5 threes, 88% from the line. So somebody who isn't afraid to star on a bad team. And this is my working Jordan Poole theory. I just thought of it. I think Jordan Poole offended Kyle Kuzma, and Poole's afraid he's going to get beat up in the locker room or something. Because Kuz is actually hard. He's from Flint, Michigan. Yeah, he's from Flint. Like he wears the big pink sweaters, but I think he actually has respect as to where everyone thinks Jordan Poole's a clown.
Yeah.
Like other NBA players. Now, other NBA players are down with Kuz.
Man, even the referees. I was watching a game last night or the night before where they were playing Detroit, and there was like a few times in a row where he got like blatantly fouled. Blatantly fouled. And the refs are just like, nothing, and he's looking, and he's just like looking around,
Jordan Poole,
where's the call? And they're like, you're not getting any. And Jordan Poole, and the refs are just like, we're not going to give you this call. Like he gets no respect from anybody.
He's like the annoying kid in the cafeteria who gets his plate of food flipped over, and like nobody says anything.
There's right, yeah, you're like, what's that on this person?
Exactly. So I wonder if it's affecting his Instagram baddies count, Jordan Poole.
Yeah. Well, swing and a miss sometimes, but who do you got? You got a miss or a make here?
Enough Wizards talk, man. Let's dip back into my waiver wire bicycle glue guy who takes a leap to year-long hold. Glue guy.
I need an acronym for this, maybe.
Yeah, I haven't had a lot of time lately, and I would have put that through the workshop a little better, but we're rolling with the bicycle here. Okay, we're gonna stick with the same presentation. This player, per game averages, number 29. His totals, number 31. He was 98% drafted, so most people were taking a flyer. And his final ADP was 134.
Whoa.
He plays for the same team he's always played for, and he went to college at Alabama. Any guesses who this is? I can tell you.
I don't know.
This is one
Brandon Miller?
No, it's one Herbert Jones.
Oh, Herb Jones. Locked on Herb Jones.
Locked on Herb. I just wanted to give him a shout out, man. Like, the first thing that we notice is the reason that you have Herb in the first place. When you're looking at why is he this high, the first thing we notice going into his stats here is his blocks and steals, which those are the areas that we've always had him. Those have gone up a level. While also his popcorn numbers have went from passable at best in the past to helpful this season. So unlike Matt Strus, who just seems to get better and better, I do think that Herb has begun to regress a bit to the mean here as I went into the numbers. But so I'm actually going to present this as someone who's overachieved, but is a sell high for me. I think if you can get any established top 50, 60 player for him, I would probably do that. And some of the reasons for that is his regression in free throws percentage is regressing back to the mean. He had a 9-for-9 game, and at that point he got it all the way up to 88%. I went through the box score. He's averaging 76 in his career. So I think we're ticking closer to the 78, 79%. He was 75% last week. And, when the Pelicans get fully healthy, they get Trey Murphy back. I think he's going to go back to top 60, 75 moving forward. So a fantastic find. I'm not going to dive into the numbers on him just, for the sake of time, and you can do that. But, it's been respectable. The defensive stats have been great, but it has been ticking down. And so he's the kind of player I might float some sell high offers. If you want to try to get a top 40 guy and include him in a 2-for-1, he's the sort of player that might be able to get that done. But yeah, little shout out to Herb Jones, a player that we've always liked. And I was always wondering, and let me know what you think, is this just a prototypical lockdown defender, and it's not going to translate to fantasy? And it's nice to see that he's a season-long hold at this point. You don't have to consider dropping him anymore.
Yeah, I love that analysis across the board on him. I like his inclusion. I like Herb Jones as a player also.
As a man.
As a fan. I have noticed though that it's like defensive stats can be this way too. I mean, they can come in bunches, and I feel like with Herb Jones, they like he wins you weeks.
Yeah.
But then there's other weeks where he kind of just gets you ones and twos and doesn't deliver you that much else. But it's always fun to have a couple of those guys on your roster that can just single handedly win you a week in whatever category it is, and that is him.
And this year he's just doing enough to where you're not staring at it and you're like, I feel a draft in here. The 9 points and 3 rebounds really hurt on the day where he gives you 1 steal and no blocks. And so that floor has risen up a bit this year.
Yeah, I like that. I'm just gonna touch on one guy before I move on to somebody else. Just a quick shout out and
touch on him.
And that's a quick shout out to Kawhi Leonard. A guy that was ranked at 20. I had him at 54. I was
a
not
fun guy.
Yeah. I was not gonna touch him at all. I had no faith he was gonna play. He hasn't missed a game this season, so
that's incredible.
Just a shout out to him actually being the player that he can and should be. So shout out there.
I love that.
Yeah, but the guy who I want to talk about next is I think even more well. Him and Maxey are the 2 steals of the draft so far this year. This guy is a rookie, and he was going 41. I was more bullish on him, but I was still a little too afraid. I had him at 32 instead of 42. He's currently the 7th best player in the entire league.
Is this player Sean Kemp?
This player is not Sean Kemp. This player is David Robinson. No, this player is Chet Holmgren. Yeah, and we just lost Flyin J. He just walked off. We thought he was going to go through. We were going to go through a whole podcast without me bringing up anybody that resides in the state of Oklahoma.
Actually, I just got a tweet direct message from George Carl, so I gotta run, Coach Carl.
Oh, you did? Wow, that's nice. That's nice.
He wants to play some 2K Live, so.
Okay, nice.
No, I'm glad you're going to do chat. I'll be quiet.
Yeah, he kind of deserves it here. He's absolutely just crushing it. He's giving you 18 and 8. With almost 2 threes a game, 2.3 blocks. He's the player that in everybody's draft projections, this was like the best potential outcome, and we're seeing that right away. And that's pretty cool. It's fun to watch too, just seeing this kind of unique player out there that's just so different than everybody else. And so I think the question is, will it last? Is this how sustainable is this? And so I kind of took a look at it. Part of the reason he's up that high is he's doing all that on just extreme amazing efficiency. He's shooting this year 44% right now on 3-pointers, which is like that's Isaiah nice. Joe S. Curry level.
How many a game? How many attempts?
I don't have that in front of me. I know he makes 1.8 per game, so
do the math there.
Do the math backwards, and but so I was curious. So working backwards on long twos, he's shooting 33%. So I think not that anybody wouldn't have seen some regression there, but I think 33% is a cool floor to see. So I think you're going to be looking at somewhere in the 30s for that. The other one, he's shooting 88% from the stripe. Which is obviously prime Dirk level stuff. But he shot 71% in college. So you'll see some regression there. I think long-term, the positives, I think has an opportunity to kind of stay up in that top 25 range is his shot chart is really, it's kind of ideal. It's like the shot chart is like designed by an NBA coach or something, because 88% of his shots are coming either within 10 feet of the rim or 3-pointers, which is perfect. And so I think I think really what you're going to see for the rest of the season is his defense, his reboundings. Those are real. His efficiency is going to drop a little bit, but hang on to him. You got the steal of the draft, so congratulations, and don't do anything rash.
I do have some concerns.
Let's hear it.
Like, A, this guy has to have a super hairy back. Like, you're getting the hideous white guy bump, and that's nice, but this guy's gotta be hairy as hell. I mean, and we're talking like thick bristles, like, you know, stuff that we might need to censor this pot. I did wait. Once I saw that cup of water go into your mouth, I was like, perfect.
Oh, wow, that really almost went all over the screen.
No, man, he's been incredible. He's a 9-cat dream, wet dream. Hard to look at. Those jerseys are hard to look at, but yeah, he needed to be included, and I'm really glad he did the work on that. And I went to ruin it because I'm a bitter man with no team. So
yeah, no, that's fair. I don't resent you for poo-pooing that one at all.
No, he's been great. I did quick in the shout out department because you gave a nice little shout out to Kawhi. Just want to give a shout out to Yusuf Nurkic, man. A man who cannot make a layup to save his life, and it's sometimes hard when he leaves that thing on the side of the rim. But for fantasy and the role he has in Phoenix, it's ideal. It's just nice to see him still churning out these 9-cat friendly lines. You know, you were able to draft him in the early hundreds. He's producing top 60 value for you. And it's just nice when somebody sends you a low ball offer because they're like, oh, you got him in the 11th round. Maybe you should give him to me for my waiver wire pickup. And it's just nice to be the person that keeps rolling Nurk out there. So let's hope he can stay healthy. Here's a cheers to Nurk. Here's a cheers to the Trailblazers in other markets and on other teams still producing. And I did want to get your take on, say we did this podcast in 3 months. Have you seen enough out of Scoot Henderson? I know Josh Lloyd had him recently on his buy low, sell high show as a buy low, as somebody who needs to be rostered. And I know in our particular league, he's just sitting there. Our league's too competitive, and 11 guys, 11 players per roster. A lot of people might not have the room, but do you see him there and you go, crap, someone should swoop him? And what are their early returns? Do you have enough information?
Yeah, I mean, he's currently ranked 430th in the league. Yeah, and so I mean, it's almost more of just like memes coming out of it. I mean, the fact that he, when he was injured during that time, they figured out that he couldn't really see, and so
What?
I
missed that.
And so they gave him so they gave him contacts.
Blazers corner, by the way. Blazers corner.
And so now he wears contacts, but then they thought, oh, this guy he's gonna touch his eye. He's not used to wearing contacts. So we're going to give him goggles. Because when I first watched him, I was like, oh, he's wearing like sports goggles, like sports glasses. And like, no, he's wearing contacts. And they're just wearing goggles over it so he doesn't touch his eyes.
Okay.
Like, they don't trust them enough to not hurt himself. Which is weird. The goggles look cool.
We love the
goggles. He's terrible. He's absolutely terrible. He can get anywhere he wants, but then he has no idea what to do once he gets there. And his shots are just like throw it up at the rim. Which isn't to say that he's not going to be something good down the line. I do not hold him right now. Do not hold Scoot Henderson at this particular second.
Unless if you're in a really deep league. If you're in a 14-team league, that's fine. And you can eat that. But keep an eye on him, because there's going to be a point where you're going to want to pick him up. And I think really that's going to probably coincide once they trade Brogdon. They got to trade Brogdon.
When Brogdon's in the game, the Blazers just win. It's amazing. That's a bad roster. And the amount of games that they have won with him in it is just insane.
And they're playing him a lot of minutes, man. They're playing him good. They're playing him a lot of minutes. And what confuses me is you don't need to showcase Malcolm Brogdon for a trade. The league knows what Malcolm Brogdon is. So wouldn't you want to keep him, in a protective case? I mean, the guy's out there playing 34 minutes a game, and killing it. So
I think that was the plan. And then Anthony Simons got injured, and then Scoot got injured, and they kind of things went a little Esquire there. But yeah, no, Scoot is I don't think that don't trade for him at this point,
Right.
but keep an eye on him. He will produce very good numbers coming down the line. At this particular moment in time, he hasn't figured it out. The game is going too fast for him. But you can tell all the physical tools are there. And as he gets more reps, I think it's going to help. And I think watching Brogdon play, and the one thing I will say before we move on to Scoot Henderson is the move to the bench has been very good for him.
Right.
I think having that opportunity to rebuild, the game kind of has slowed down a little bit. It's playing with the backups a little bit. There's a little bit more opportunities out there. He's not getting the first team defense kind of game planning around him.
Right.
I think if he can stay as that super six man for a while, I think that's when he's going to really pop and start putting together those big numbers. So somebody to monitor, but I'm not going to jump out and pick him up at this particular moment.
Very sound analysis. Look, and Nate watches the Blazers closely, so I think the bias was removed. That's a fantasy take. You hear the emotion, but that's natural. You want that. It really reminds me of rookie or Jalen Green, and what he ultimately did when he went on that run at the end of the year, which was a short window in time, 3 weeks to a month.
Good though.
It was great, but would you have wanted
playoffs?
You wouldn't have wanted to bleed out for 3.5 months to get there, though. You kind of want to play a game of chicken in an average size league there.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. If you can wait and you're first or second in your league and you can bite off that, that's great. Yeah, you should do that. But yeah.
Well, before we get out of here, I got to ask you because, the people.
I do have one more guy here, though, too.
Oh, you got more guys.
Yeah, one last guy. And I'm curious to hear your take on this guy. He's a guy that's down overall. But it was somebody that I think the broader fantasy expert community was higher on the consensus. And that's Paolo Banchero.
Let's talk Paolo. Some people really overvalue the guy. Let's talk.
Yeah, he was pre-ranked was 68. I know that I saw experts have him ranked in the 30s. I had him at 51. He's currently 150. And he finished the season at 75 last year. And I think a lot of people were expecting this breakout after his Team USA performance last year. Yeah. Were you higher or lower on him coming into the season than kind of what you were seeing?
I think I was lower. He's not the kind of player I like to build around, and there's always someone who likes him a little bit more than me. I'm pulling up the numbers here. He's a confusing player. His season rank is 122, so I'm trying to figure out what do you need to punt to make him, because in a points league, he's a top 40, 50 option.
I can tell you because I've done the math here. He's if what he's bad at, because his straight box scores are 26.5 and 4.5.
Yeah.
1.8 stocks, 1.4 threes. That's all really good. But if you were in a build right now today where you were punting free throw percentage, because he shoots some like gangbusters.
He
shoots
high volume.
65% for the line. High volume and bad. And he's terrible at turnovers. So if you're punting those two categories, he moves up to the 42nd ranked player.
He goes great with Giannis, actually. And the guy in our league has both of them. And I've made some offers for Paolo, and he's like, no, he fits my build too well. Seems like Matt Boucher, shout out, is ready to pull the plug after losing LaMelo and unload Giannis. So we'll see. The trade winds are always blown with this guy. A 5 for 3 could be pending right now. He's an interesting player. He kind of is like, at this stage of his career, as far as builds, he's like the Russell Westbrook of wings, as far as, what you got to be punting. I like him, but I honestly, I was more on Franz Wagner, getting him a round or two later.
Agreed.
So I'm more of a Franz Wagner guy as far as how I like to build my teams. I think the sky's the limit for him. It has to be the right build, and it really is a punt, free throws, percentage, punt, turnovers build.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think the thing is like he's not doing as well as we thought he was, but he's doing good in the categories where you expected him to do good in, and bad in the categories that you expected. That might be a little challenge. So
haven't gotten the jump yet. We haven't gotten.
We haven't got the jump, and that is where the surprise came because I think we all were expecting a little jump.
Yeah, word. Yeah, just to put a bow on Bankero, I think sophomore season we could still see he's starting to tick up. And if you're a Palo guy, you're a Palo guy. But listen, this has been kind of our examination of players that have either outperformed, underperformed, or we just wanted to give them a shout out. So as we approach the quarter mark of the season here, this is our review of said players. But at the end of the podcast, we've been getting a lot of questions. I've gotten at least 3 messages personally about when are we going to get the next Litke's locks. This is just a little segment where Litke's going to take you through some of the bets he's looking at right now, some of the stuff he has pending. What you got in the old incubator over there on DraftKings, Litke?
Yeah, the preseason I think is the funnest time because there's so much possibilities there. I think of the 30 teams, I put some amount of wager on about 17 or so, 18 of them on their over-unders. I think there was a lot of value on, I think the biggest value that I saw was on first team all rookies. I got some like pretty fun. I mean, I got like Koulibaly, Sar Thompson, Keontae George, all first team, at really good, like plus 8, plus 800.
What was Keontae George at?
Let me take a look. That was
I need to know.
Yeah, it might take me a half a second to find this.
Tell me, baby girl.
Keontae George is plus 600.
Beautiful.
Yeah, Koulibaly was plus 1,600. I'm pretty excited about that one. Sar Thompson was only plus 200, but still
that's
pretty
nice.
Solid.
That's a lock.
Yeah. But I think the values right now, there's we're kind of like early season. We're still kind of figuring some things out. I think on teams where I've had some success is that I think the New Orleans is kind of really hitting their stride. I've been able to win some money off of them recently. And so I like their odds as just as a throw-in dart in the play-in tournament or just in general, kind of across the board on games. Their play-in odds are plus 1,200. I got them at plus 3,000 or plus 3,000 earlier or 30,000. So
the Pelicans?
Yeah, I got them at 30 to 1.
My goodness.
So yeah, I was pretty happy on that. So go Pelicans. But there's some good I think paybacks in this in-season tournament, especially because at this point it's all 1 game elimination. So
it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, I think that's pretty neat. The other one, I think you can kind of still get some really good values on the awards side. Everything else is not that great of awards, but the clutch player of the year, it's super up in the air. Who knows who's going to win that? And
how it's assessed as well. I mean, there's a lot of mystery to it.
Yeah, the second favorite right now, the third favorite. So the second favorite is Shea at plus 800. De'Aaron Fox is plus 1,200.
Yes.
So those are second and third. You're getting 12 to 1 odds on. You can get some good paybacks there. And then the last one that I've had some hot streaks on is I love betting the Rockets at home. I think the general public is still a little cool on them. They haven't won a road game yet this year, so yeah, I think careful with them on the road, but at home, they're doing really well, and I think there's a window to take advantage of right now.
I love that. The young core in Houston is just really gelling the way they're playing together through Şengün, who really is he's stepping into that baby Joker mantra, and he's been one of my guys. So
I'm shocked you didn't talk about him this pod.
You know why? Because I'm not just here to brag. I'm here to give information to the people. And, he's definitely outperformed. Same with De'Aaron Fox. Both of these guys have outperformed their ADPs, but these are clear my guys, Flyin J's guys. You already know that I come correct on those two. So I just want to, I actually did. And I was wondering if you do Fox or Şengün. Obviously, you assumed I would. But I decided not to. But yeah, shout out Alfred Şengün because the way that offense is flowing through him is just a beauty to watch. And De'Aaron Fox is him, getting 30 points a game now. He's taking that final jump, just pure score, still giving you 6.5 dimes a game. Just a joy to watch. I think he could have been right in there when we were doing Hallie and Maxey. But I didn't want to be so obvious, so.
That's fair. Yeah. I mean, save some meat on the bones for the next pod.
Exactly. All right. Well, this has been your quarterly review in fantasy basketball. I'm really excited for the in-season tournament. It's making fantasy basketball a little funky, but
Who do you think's going to win, by the way?
that's the price we pay. Actually going into it, I had the Sacramento Kings.
Me too.
So did you really? Okay, I think I might have talked
Yeah.
about that. So I was relieved the way that worked out. I actually missed the end of that game yesterday. But yeah, I thought they were kind of perfect. A hungry team who made the playoffs for the first time since 2005, but lost in the first round. I think but a lot of these teams are treating it very seriously. So I'm stoked.
Yeah,
I'm
for
stoked.
sure.
But it's gonna be funky. So make sure you're looking. The teams who locked up those spots that play Monday and Tuesday. That's why you're seeing players like Harrison Barnes getting picked up. Get out in front of that because it's going to make fantasy basketball a little funky. You're going to have to be on it to make sure you're getting enough games in. So
For sure. Yeah, no game Sunday.
no. Yeah, I'll just concentrate on football. So it'll be nice for me pretty soon. Just basketball, but right now I'm all over the place. So please do follow this podcast on Twitter, Projecting the Jump. Follow me, Flying J, on Twitter as well. These videos have been dropping on YouTube, and that's been really fun. We've gotten a little bit of engagement. Ask any questions if something comes up. If we missed a player, if you wanted to add something in one of our takes, like hit us up on the video. It's fun to kind of interact with you that way. And since Natron Clean doesn't do the whole social media thing, if the YouTube video comments start buzzing, maybe we can get some Q&As with Natron. That'd be fun, just on the YouTube video.
Yeah, we appreciate everybody that listening, and especially if you've made it this far. We definitely appreciate everybody that's been supporting the pod, and we're excited to keep the content rolling.
We love you. For Natron Clean, this is your boy Flying J. Until next time, enjoy the in-season tournament, y'all.